So we talked in the last episode, if we can turn it that. You'd gone out into Alberta, to Jasper. You'd run yourself into the ground. I like the comment that there's a combination of what you're putting into your body and not what you're putting into your body. So you came back to Ottawa. What then transpired in your life when you came back to Ottawa? What do you do?
Right. So at that point in my life, the big thing going on for me was a relationship that I had started in Alberta with a young lady, and she had a contract that she didn't want to break out there. She wanted to fulfill it. And so we decided that I would go back to Ottawa and get a life started that she could come into when her contract was done. So I would look for a job, get us a place to live. And that's essentially what I came back to do, on top of reuniting with my family. There was never any separation, really, relationally with my family, physically, of course, but my siblings had come out and visited me in Alberta, and I spoke on the phone with my parents throughout my time there, so it was before the days of FaceTime and Skype. But just being back in the same city as my family was very special. So I was taking advantage of that, and I was looking get that start in my life again that I had tried back in Alberta and failed to do, and I thought, okay, maybe now I can do it back in Ottawa. I've gained gained some insight, some experience out west. I'm more mature. I have a more refined outlook on life. I think now is the time. And I'm in a great relationship that I really want to see work out. So,
what age would you have been at this point?
About 22, early 20s, very early 20s. And so I got a job. I got my foot in the door with a younger pharmaceutical company servicing the geriatric population, and I was able to gain some good experience there, and I was given some good responsibility. Work-wise, there was stability. I was enjoying the work that I was doing. I found a nice place for us to live, and this young lady moved out to Ottawa, and we started our life together. That didn't last long. Within a few months of this, the relationship fell apart, and without getting into details which aren't really necessary, it was a real earth-shattering thing for me to realize that this was the one person that, apart from my family, this was the one person that I that erased my loneliness, that numbed that sense of insecurity, that filled a void, temporarily, albeit. And so when that relationship ended, I was devastated. And I think back now as a married man with a growing family, to think of how emotional I was for a relationship like that to end, which was on a much smaller scale than where I'm at now, is interesting, but there was a lot of maturing I still needed to do, and so I was emotionally distraught and discouraged, and all of the insecurities and the fears and everything that I had been carrying around these past few years just kind of came back in overdrive, and I'm left on my own to try to deal with it.
It's really interesting, isn't it, how that as human beings we have that sense of loneliness. We understand it's because we're apart from God. And we do try and fill it with other things.
Mm-hmm.
And temporarily that can happen, but then God can take that away from us to leave that void.
Mm-hmm.
As you say, that the word devastation is appropriate, you know?
Yeah, when you're building your, even if you're building it on sand, when that sand starts to give way, you're devastated. Jesus says, where your treasure is, your heart will be.
Mm-hmm.
And so my heart was extremely diseased, figuratively speaking.
You continue to work?
I did. I kept the job, and I said, okay, you know, that I didn't conceptualize it like this at the time, but as we speak, is okay. Here's the third shot for me to really try to get my life going somewhere, to shed myself and rid myself of these anxieties and these fears and this loneliness and these insecurities and this anger and this bitterness. And I said, obviously I've got to do something different. It's not working. You know, it's been a number of years and things keep, it's like I'm going down, 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 down. And so I said, I'm going to just try something different. And I went to the library, and I took out some books by very different modern, or well, they're not too modern now, but psychoanalysts, Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung, on different wavelengths.
How would you have been aware of those type of writers? You know, as a relatively young man.
Yeah, I think I must have come across them somewhere on the internet. I think at that time I was very good at painting a really impressive veneer for people to see of who I supposedly was. And if I wanted people to think that I was a deep thinker, or someone who read, people that only intellectuals read, or something like that, I would be able to convey that. And it was empty, and it was a sham.
Uh-huh.
But I must have along the way picked up, I don't know, to be honest, I don't know exactly where it was, but I came across these books at the library, and so I started reading Freud, Carl Jung, and that led me into some Buddhist thinking. And so I was learning about Buddhism, and I thought at the time, and there was some New Age thinking going on there too, and I was going through the buffet line, and I was picking a little bit of this, a little bit of that, making my plate just the way I wanted it, and thinking this is my new life that I've always, I'm finally there. Remember one day I had gone for a run or a walk down by the water, this beautiful place I used to go to, and I remember standing over the water on a little bit of a cliff, just thinking, I'm the man that I've wanted to be. I have happiness. I have insight into life. I had convinced myself that, and it's amazing the things we can convince ourselves of.
Yes.
And I carried that on for a while, and I was really giving myself to it. And one night I was by myself in my apartment, and I was just overcome with a sense of despair. And whenever I share this, I always qualify it because, especially as a pastor, we're careful about voices from heaven.
Yes.
But I had, at that moment, whether it was something on the TV or something in the people above me, I had heard that I was losing my soul. And it threw me into a panic. And I was sitting there and I was thinking, well, I'm doing all of this stuff. I'm putting all of this work into creating a new man, a new identity that I'm finally happy with, someone that's actually going to impress other people, someone that other people are going to want to emulate and imitate. And I was basking in that. And at that night, I was hit with the sense that I'm doing all of this. I'm reading all of that. I'm meditating here. I'm thinking through this. I'm exercising. I'm new aging, this, that, and the other thing. But I have absolutely no power over my own soul.
That's a phenomenal point to reach, isn't it, in anybody's life, where you realize you've invested yourself intellectually, physically, into various means to alleviate that loneliness, and yet you come to a point you realize I've nothing for my soul.
Yeah.
Well, that's been, again, really, really interesting.
All right.
I didn't know you were into Freud and Clark and others, but that's part of the purpose of these videos, is to find that out.
That's it, yeah.
So that's good for now.
Okay.
We'll pick it up again.